Item number 12.
Item 12, resolution approving term sheet under the Nationally Significant Freight and Highway Projects Discretionary Grant Program and Exhibit A agreement. Lori Seago, Senior Assistant County Attorney.
Ms. Seago.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I don't have a PowerPoint. I'm just going to go through this document with you briefly, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Just to provide a little context, as you all know, last November, the county submitted an application to the United States Department of Transportation seeking $65 million in funding to widen I-25 by adding one lane in each direction from approximately Monument here in El Paso County to Castle Rock up in Douglas County. That grant application was approved, and so now you have before you the next step that needs to be taken in order to implement the grant and move forward with receiving funding from the Federal Highway Administration. It's called a term sheet, so that's how I'm going to refer to it, and it is an agreement between the United States Department of Transportation, El Paso County as the applicant or project sponsor, as we're called in this document, and the Colorado Department of Transportation. CDOT's a party here because they're actually going to receive the funding on our behalf, and they are actually administering the project. They've done all the design work, and they've actually begun construction up in Douglas County on the first phase of the project. What the term sheet does is that it sets out the material terms and conditions for everyone's understanding that are to be included in subsequent agreements to be known as fund obligating agreements. And those are the mechanisms through which the Federal Highway Administration will actually deliver the grant to CDOT and the county. Many of the terms within the agreement are fairly standard, so I'm not going to go through each one with you. They talk about the division of responsibilities within the federal government itself, and then in Section 3 it goes on to talk about fund obligating agreements and how those will come forward in the future to actually provide the funding. Kind of skipping forward to section number 6, that talks about cost sharing among all of the entities that have agreed to allocate funds to the project, including the federal government, CDOT, the state, as well as the local entities that are going to be joining in, which includes El Paso County, Douglas County, and the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority.
Does, and if I could stop for just one second here and ask a question. Does item number 6 on the list in any way obligate El Paso County to coming up with any portion or all of the funds required in order to do the project?
It doesn't. It does refer to Schedule B, which is attached to this agreement. And Schedule B, just to explain that a little bit, Schedule A sets forth the changes from the application that have occurred in the interim period, and Schedule B provides a little bit more detail about the scope of the work and the funding for it. It collectively, and by it I mean Schedule B, collectively refers to local funds, but it does not specifically call out El Paso County and how much, if any, of those local funds will be provided by El Paso County in this agreement. So
per the term sheet, what are our obligations if, say Douglas County doesn't come through with their $10 million? What liabilities does El Paso County have in that circumstance?
It's my interpretation, based on a reading of the terms within the agreement, that El Paso County does not have any obligation to backfill or to try to compensate for any funding levels that were anticipated from any other entity. I believe that the only that the primary consequence that might occur, though it is not likely, is that the United States Department of Transportation may rethink its grant of its portion based on the fact that the state and local funds are not as anticipated.
Thank you.
And also, please let me know if I'm going too fast. I am trying to skim through this. Skipping ahead in the agreement to paragraph 8, that just talks about the safety requirements and states that the project itself must carry out certain safety-related activities, which it does, and that was set forth in the grant application itself. Sections 10 and 11 just highlight some of the federal requirements that will apply to this grant, including the provisions, the Environmental Policy Act provisions, as well as the Buy America requirements. Section 12 requires the county to provide quarterly progress reports to the Department of Transportation, and that is something that we will work with CDOT on. As CDOT is administering and overseeing the project, we will work with them in preparing those and getting those submitted as the project moves forward. Chapters 13, 14, and 15 are what you would anticipate seeing in a standard agreement. They talk about the remedies if there is non-compliance with this agreement. They set forth the provisions that allow modification in the future of this agreement if that becomes necessary, and also sets forth the effective date of the agreement. Again, as I stated, we have Schedule A attached to the agreement, which was primarily drafted by CDOT because in the interim between the application period and receipt of this term sheet, CDOT had actually begun construction on the project and had developed more fully their plan for the project, and so this highlights some of the changes from the application to the project. And then again, Schedule B sets forth a general understanding of the scope of work and the budget for it, as well as the timing of the various phases of the project. If this agreement is approved by all of the relevant parties, the next step, it's my understanding, will be to work with CDOT in developing an intergovernmental agreement between the county and CDOT, setting forth our mutual understandings, not only with regard to county funding, but also the various responsibilities with respect to project oversight and responsibility to the federal government.
Any questions? Any comments? Commissioner Vanderwerff.
Thank you. Yeah, I do have a comment, and so first of all, I'd like to say I appreciate the really hard work that the staff has done to put this agreement together, because I know it's not been easy. There's a lot of public agencies involved in this, so it's been a challenge. And but we have the agreement before us today, and I think, with one exception, which I'll mention here, I think it's a very well-written agreement. The one concern that I have is with regard to the $35 million for local public agencies, and that we are the only signer to this agreement as far as local public agencies at this time. So my preference would be to negotiate IGAs or something in writing from the other local public agencies that ultimately will be a fiscal partner in this process. So I do have a concern about that because we don't have that in place in advance of signing this agreement. So that is a great document, but I do have that one concern about this. And I'll just leave it at that, so thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Gonzales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I too just want to thank everybody for the hard work, particularly staff on this, but there's so many partners that have worked to make this happen. I think the IGA is vital for improving the safety aspect of the freeway. I-25, the gap, the safety to our residents, safety to public safety, in particular the state troopers that, as we know, them and others who have, too many lives have been lost on that because it is a safety issue. And so I really want to highlight how important this is for the safety aspect of the I-25 gap. And this allows us to address those concerns as best possible at this time. Also, I think the IGA allows us to retains flexibility to the county in our work and cooperation with CDOT in completing the project. So those are my thoughts right now and why I will support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Brimmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you. This is a perfect example of everyone working together, from federal to state to local entities, to just get a project done that our citizens expect us to do. So thank you for all the work that went behind the scenes to do that, and let's get it done.
Any other comments? Sure. Commissioner Williams.
Yes, it is a much-needed public safety project, so I will support getting this done.
Thank you. And I want to remind folks of, where we are and how we got here. 2 years ago, this was a project that was 10 years away from starting. And if you drive through the gap section of I-25 now, you'll see that it's already well underway. We have come a tremendous amount of distance in the last couple of years in order to get this incredibly important public safety project accomplished. A big part of that is this INFRA grant and the $65 million that come from the federal government in order to get this thing completed. Somebody said not too long ago that if you look at the number of people who apply to Harvard versus the number that get accepted, and look at the number of communities that applied for one of these INFRA grants versus the number that were accepted, it's literally easier to get into Harvard than it is to have one of these INFRA grants awarded to a community. And it was done in our circumstance, I believe, because we truly had a shovel-ready project that was completely ready to go. Once all the approvals were in place, we were ready to break ground and make this start happening. And we were in that place because of all of the significant collaboration between our community, and the City of Colorado Springs, the county, the RTA, our partners in Douglas County, the state, the feds, CDOT, all of these entities coming together to push hard in the same direction to ensure that this project was moving forward in the right direction. And that's the only reason that we're where we are today, is because of all of those entities coming together to do what they were supposed to. I can't believe we're finally here. I'm incredibly proud that we're here today, and I think that this is a truly great accomplishment for this Board of County Commissioners and for our community as a whole. So with that, I would entertain them, and I'm going to do this. I move that we accept the INFRA grant and term sheet in item number 14, or I'm sorry, in item number 12 on the agenda.
Second.
All right, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Brimmer.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerff.
And just one quick comment. I'd like to concur with my colleagues about the importance of this project, but I still remain with the concern about not having something written in place with the other local public agencies, so I vote nay. If we were to get those agreements in place, then I would vote for this agreement.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzales.
Aye.
And the chairman votes aye. That passes 4-1 with Commissioner Vanderwerff in opposition.
Thank you.